I'll tell you the best pickup line I've ever heard in my lifetime.
If you're meeting a woman as a man, you ask her, do you fart?
The response to that question is going to be so profoundly revealing of how authentic that person is.
Seduction is a language basically without words.
He was so relaxed that when women were around him, they just melted.
What are the qualities that make a person anti-seductive?
I don't need to go do all of this weightlifting stuff. I can just get toilet paper and stick it under my sleeve. If I am looking for a partner, number one thing above everything else is... I'll tell you the best pickup line I've ever heard in my lifetime. Asking a woman to look around the room and tell you who is real and who's completely fake. So like you might just ask a stranger, be like, hey, like just looking around, how do I tell when someone's like a total POS or like a total narcissist and somebody who's actually genuine? You'll get so much education. They're going to teach you things that you've never heard of, but it's also almost irresistible. They're going to be like, okay, come here. You see this bitch over there? And they're going to start going around the room, like picking these women apart. And they will give you these little insights like, wow, I've never even thought to consider thinking down that direction that they're talking about. And it's almost like an irresistible topic of conversation at the same time. The psychopath, what they do is they pull you in by becoming what you need. So the moment that they transform into what you need to see or what you need to hear, you develop a cognitive blind spot for all of these warning signs. And that's the biggest thing that happens, that I'm talking to this person where it feels like we're having this great connection. When my brain says, I like this person, then it leads to I trust this person. So our brain, if we're not careful, starts to ignore some of those things. One of the most powerful questions that anybody could ever ask is, what is the biggest thing you learned about yourself during that time? Working at a stressful job, a past relationship, going through anything stressful, some kind of conflict in somebody's life. When you have narcissists, you'll get a response from that person where it's typically blaming. Nothing was wrong with them. They didn't really need to learn anything about themselves. They didn't need to develop anything. They didn't need to grow. So you'll hear a lot of answers like that. You're going to hear, I learned not to trust people so quickly. I learned not to get involved with this type of person. I learned that people can't be trusted. I learned that you get hurt no matter what. On the healthier side, you'll hear people say, well, I've definitely learned that I need to be more open. I kind of concealed everything. I was too controlling. And you'll hear admissions that are honest and genuine and forthcoming. So that one question is super powerful.
If you're meeting a woman as a man, you ask her, do you fart?
This is not the opening line. This is as a joke in the middle of the conversation. So just that question alone, if it's presented in a fun way and you're a confident person and you ask it kind of in a joking way, the response to that question is going to be so profoundly revealing of how authentic that person is and how fun they are. You'll get an instant measurement of like the fun level and the authenticity at the exact same time. If I am looking for a partner, number one thing above everything else is the degree of artificiality that that person is comfortable with. So if I see someone and they're getting their dopamine from likes on Instagram, I will never compete with that. Even if we're in a relationship, that addiction is still going to be there. And they're living this kind of artificial life on Instagram. And they make YouTube videos and their personality's fake. Their background is fake. They clean up just the little area of their house where like the video is going to be. And everything on Instagram is curated and perfect. I know that that person is extremely comfortable with artificiality. They're living in a simulation, literally.
I guess they just wear a thick mask, not just online, but probably shows up in real life as well.
Big time.
Seduction is a language basically without words. It's a language of gestures. You take someone to a certain place. There's no words involved, but by taking to this particular place, which may have romantic connotations or whatever, you're gesturing something to them. When you give a gift, there are seductive gifts and there are non-seductive gifts. If you spent $10 and you gave them something that reflected something they had said, something from their childhood, some story that they were relating to you, it reveals that you were listening to them, which is very seductive. So I tell people, if you're talking to someone for several hours, if later in the conversation you come back to something they said hours ago and you kind of bring it up again in a different context, it's going to register that you were listening to them and you remembered it and it got under your skin, and it's deeply seductive because you're listening to someone. People don't listen anymore. They don't reflect. They don't mirror you anymore. It's something we're all missing. That's why I don't find the word seduction evil at all.
If you use silence as a tactic, it's going to look manipulative. But If you genuinely are comfortable enough where you can pause for a few seconds to consider what someone's saying while you're nodding your head, you're going to get a wildly different response. That pause of just being like, I'm interested in what you're saying, and I'm not sitting here with a straight face and like staring you in the face like an asshole. And the people who use it as a tactic, they have a tendency to just sit there straight-faced. If you're interested in the other person genuinely, and you take the time to stop and really just process what they're saying, then you're going to nod your head because you're starting to process those things in real life, not because you're pretending to process those things. Like the nodding and the silence should be a byproduct of your level of interest in that other person. And it looks and feels very different when you do it because you're interested in somebody.
When I worked in this hotel in Paris, I was 21. It was the hotel where all of the models would stay. And there was this guy who kept showing up at the hotel. His name was Eduardo. He was this tall Brazilian man. This is kind of where the Art of Seduction came from. I would watch this guy. He was so smooth. He had every skill in the book. He was so relaxed that when women were around him, they just melted. I was thinking, what is this power that this guy has? Yeah, he was pretty good looking. He wasn't the most handsome person in the world, but he had some kind of skill that he had developed. He had crafted it coming to this hotel because he had seduced so many of the models staying there. I became friends with him briefly, and I realized it was his confidence, his calmness. There was nothing defensive about him. And the fact of him being so undefensive, he's not insecure. He's not thinking about himself. He's not in the moment with a woman going, what do I need to say to impress her? He's not there at all. He's like, so on them, inside their mind, so relaxed, and not thinking about himself made him incredibly charming to women.
What are the qualities that make a person anti-seductive? So one of them are people who talk too much, who are always bragging, who always have a story to tell. In the realm of seduction, women often complain of men who explain. They explain everything. They explain exactly what you're doing, what you mean. They call it mansplaining. So people who tell you everything, doing 95% of the talking, people who moralize, who tell you you're wrong, this is what you need to do, this is what's good, this is what's bad. People who are always bragging about themselves like they're so great, they're extremely anti-seductive. So a seductive person is self-aware. They're self-aware of their body language, the clothes that they wear, of how they talk. The anti-seductive person has no self-awareness. They enter life, they don't look in a mirror, they don't think about what they're saying, they just think they're being natural, and they offend a lot of people.
What's the best piece of dating advice you've ever received?
The best advice I ever received was that using tricks and tactics are all ways to fake like you have your shit together. I showed up like a pickup artist book to my mentor one time when I was really excited about this stuff. And he challenged me. He said, flip to a random page in this pickup book and show me how it's not a way to fake like you're a real man. And I was like, oh yeah, easy. And I couldn't do it. That was a crippling blow to my level of certainty that you could just kind of tactic your way through life. So the best piece of dating advice I ever got was handle your shit like separately. Like you have your own life all the time, and always be more okay with not having sex than she is.
Do you think like any tactics are useful?
I think tactics are useful once you have the cause of those tactics down. Typically, when you see those tactics, that's a byproduct of just being a man. It's a byproduct of having your shit together. It's a byproduct of living a life of discipline. But you're just saying like, I don't need to go do all of this weightlifting stuff. I can just get toilet paper and stick it under my sleeve, and it's going to look like a bicep for a few minutes. But the muscles are a byproduct of having discipline. A lot of the pickup stuff that I studied back in the day, I thought it was really cool until I realized it's just faking. Because I'm trying to fake someone into thinking that I have my shit together, that I am disciplined. It's kind of like becoming a decorator crab. They put stuff all over their shell to look like something else, to look super special, instead of having the root cause of all those things.
Hey, before you go, remember this. The moment you bring up who's real and who's fake, people can't help but reveal what they see and how they judge others. And in doing that, they quietly expose themselves. The most dangerous part of seduction isn't attraction, it's the blind spot. Once you feel a connection, your brain starts trusting. That's when you stop seeing clearly. Real seduction isn't tactics, it's presence, listening, self-awareness. It's that calm confidence where you're not trying to impress, not forcing anything. And that's what makes people melt. The ones who fake it try to impress. The ones who have it don't need to, because it's not something they're doing. It's who they are. Just one last thing. I see messages from people who didn't realize they weren't subscribed, so take a second and double check. It's a simple, free way to support the channel. And if you're here often, you're already part of this journey. I really appreciate you being here. Stay sharp, and I'll see you in the next one.